Hello everyone and welcome to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. I am your host and the Grumpy Surfer, Ads Lyston. This year sees the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, which took place in 1982 and was the first full British war since the Second World War. This fortnight's podcast is all about 4-5 Commando's recce troop during the Falklands War. Here's a little bit of information on the Falklands War before we start the podcast. Following the Argentinian invasion on the 2nd of April 1982, 4-5 Commando had their Easter leave cancelled and hastily deployed to the Falklands, travelling in a mix of Royal Navy and Fleet auxiliary ships. Having made a tactical landing on Ajax Bay on the 21st of May 1982, the men of 4-5 Commando jumped across East Falkland via Port San Carlos, Newhouse, Douglas Settlement, Teal Inlet and Mount Kent to take part in the battle for Port Stanley. They conducted a night attack over the 11th and 12th of June 1982. The Argentinians surrendered on the 14th of June 1982. This is an account of a man who was part of 4-5 Commando's reconnaissance troop. Please enjoy my conversation with former Royal Marine Marty Wilkin. Marty Wilkin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tal.
How you doing?
Good ads, thanks. Yeah, really good.
What have you been up to at the moment?
So at the minute, I'm still working in CTC. I've been doing quite a lot of stuff from the Falklands. It seems to be in vogue at the moment. Everybody wants to know about the Falklands. So
well, it's the 40-year anniversary this year, though, right?
Yes, yeah, and I've just come back from Scotland when I went to 4-5's reunion. So that was great. Yeah.
How'd you find all those reunions for the Falklands?
Well, I never went to any until the 35th. And the only reason I went to the 35th was because I'd gone down there. I was still in the Corps. I was at Hasler Company on the staff. And they took 7 guys who were down the Falklands and 7 guys that weren't during the war. We went to have a Corps birthday down there in 2014. So, So it was. I went to our memorial, or it's really like a cairn with a very, very small brass plate on it, and it had been there for 35 years. And the RMA in the Falklands had left a cleaning box underneath, so everybody had been cleaning the plaque, but the inscription was starting to lose the names, so I was a bit concerned about that. So in the time between then and 2017, I put together a big bronze plate with big letters that wouldn't wear off, and you could just throw a bucket of water and scrub it and it would come clean. And got that sorted out with Curly Elstow, who's the head of the Royal Marines Association in the Falklands, and we put together a new memorial right in the middle of the two sisters, right instead of on the highest point, which obviously some people would struggle with. So the only reason I went to that one was to tell everyone what I'd done, which the CO wasn't very happy with me about, but there you go. And it was well accepted, and then people liked the whole thing, so it was good. So
a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know a couple of details, but obviously you're the man to spin it. You joined the Corps in what, 1972? Yeah. And you left around about, what was it, 2009?
Yeah, there was a big gap in the middle, so I did from 72, August 72 till the last day of 96 in my regular role, and then in 13 years after that, in 2009, I was invited to rejoin the Corps to go on an omelette team in Afghan to train officers in Afghan.
We'll come on to that a little bit later on. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's an extensive career. It's a lifetime.
Yeah, 31 years in total I did.
I mean it's mental, and the things that you've seen and done. I mean I've done 22 years, and in my head I've done at least 5 normal persons' lifetimes in the things that I've seen and done. And to be fair, sort of like the same as you really. Like when I joined the Marines, I was very lucky in the fact that I actually joined at a time where war was just about to kick off.
Yes.
So I saw, 3 tours of Afghan, I saw the invasion of Iraq, and then all of a sudden 2014, Afghanistan finished, or the the Middle East
down.
Just completely slowed down and shut down, and I didn't do anything for the second half of my career. I primarily aimed myself to do that because, in my head, probably similar to you, I thought I'd lost all of my cat lives, so I didn't want to put myself in harm's way anymore. So it's quite an extensive career that you've had. So let's go right back to the start. So where did you grow up and why did you join the Royal Marines?
Right. So I lived up in Harlow, Newtown in Essex, and in the early 70s I took up with horse riding, and I was a very small guy, and I liked horses a lot, and I got in the end to work at a racing stable. And so I was riding racehorses and training racehorses. One day the guy who owned the stable said, "Martin, just get on those scales a minute." And I'd been playing a bit more football at school, and my thighs had got a bit bigger and heavier. And so he said, "You're a bit too heavy to be a jockey now, mate." He says, "I'd be wrong of me to keep you here thinking you can be a jockey, because at best you'll be able to do national hunt and not flat. So," he says, "I'm going to tell you now. Just don't come back to the yard. You need to find something you're capable of. Lots of other things. Do something else." So the Passmore's comprehensive that I was at had a Marine, a naval, a sea cadet detachment with a detachment of Marines, and I joined them and did a bit of time with them, and loved it. Got a weekend at pool, to look at life, as it was called then, and I was like that. This is right up my street. I'll do this, and so by 29th of August 1972, I joined the Corps. 16 years, 4 months. Passed out the following June. Green Beret. We did the Green Beret a slightly different way around then. You did it earlier and then did continuation training afterwards. So so we did time at Deal, then from Deal to Lympstone, and then through the commando tests. I weighed about 10 stone if I was wet at that stage, and 5'4", and got through it all. So
how did you find the whole experience of recruit training back then?
Well, because of my little bit of experience, I had about 5 months with the Marine Cadets, and so they sent me up to Lossiemouth for a trip and some other places. So I had a good idea what it was going to be like. And so some of the stuff that some of the others struggled with in my troop was like Corps history. That's that bread and butter in the cadets. Everyone had to know all the Corps history. You had to be able to dot the I's and cross the T's. So, so that was the easy stuff. I enjoyed recruit training. We went to Deal juniors. Always went to Deal first for the best part of 6 months, and then moved in February to Lympstone. But the whole thing was great. It was just right up my street, and it really, was singing my song. Yeah.
How did you find the whole endurance thing? Because when I joined up, I think this is a story I've never told really before. Is that so? One of my friends when I was at school, his uncles, they were in the SBS,
right?
And every Christmas they used to have a bit of a family gathering, and me being a bit of a feral cat, I used to end up around his house and listen to the stories of his uncles, telling tales of grandeur and firefights and stuff like that. Probably weren't supposed to be telling that sort of thing, but little kids like that soak it up, right? Yeah. And I was like, I fancy a bit of that. And my dad was in the reserves, in the Fusilier reserves. Right. He used to run the Obua camp down in Salisbury. And his dad before that was in the Polish Special Forces during the Second World War. Right. So bit of family heritage there. I didn't feel any obligation that I needed to do it, but joining the Marines was like, sounds pretty cool. I was quite a laid back kind of guy. A rugby career didn't come to fruition, so I decided, fuck it, I'm going to join the Corps. I didn't really read too much into it, that much. So when I rocked up at the careers office, they were like, just do some runs and, upper body fitness. Well, my upper body fitness was pretty decent already. I could do pull-ups and press-ups till my eyes bled. That was not a problem. I was an absolute handbrake. So, and I didn't realise that the Marines was like endurance based. So when I got down there, and I think it was the second or third week, you do like, you know, the old BFT. So you did the 3 mile route.
Yeah.
I was absolutely in the hurt locker. and I didn't even realise, and the whole way through I just struggled because my body was very much in that like that sprinter state, you know, fast twitch fibres, and it hadn't transferred over yet to the slow twitch. And it wasn't until probably about 5 or 6 years after passing out that I resembled any form of like endurance whatsoever. So, you know.
Yeah, well, at 16, you don't have much endurance at all, do you? Really, you just get out there and do it, and as best you can. I'd been told to start running, so I was running to and from school. But you know, my generation, everybody walked to school. Nobody got the car to school. You know, no matter how far away it was, you had to get to school and back. And so for me, I was quite lucky. It was quite a distant distance. So you know, I was getting sort of 6 miles in every day, and then started doing little runs and shuttle runs to it. So that was good. I really did turn up, and it was just clicked with me really. I got the second diamond in training, so I got 3 months advancement for, you know, when you come out of training, which was it was quite nice. Our King's Badgerman was really good, and he really deserved it. He was like a man compared to the rest of us all boys. Like, it was quite good. Yeah.
Well, I was quite lucky in the way that I had a little bit of a vast experience within like my recruit troop. There was a guy there who was like in his, you know, early 30s, and don't know why, but he left the French Foreign Legion as a sergeant.
Yeah.
So he'd spent a lot of time in Africa and in the jungles around there. And if you've ever read The Devil's Guard, what the Germans used to do with like the civvies, like wrapping them around the wagons when they were driving around, so so that the resistance didn't shoot them. Yeah, that's pretty much what the sort of stories that were coming out from his mouth, you know. So, and he had more gongs than the training team did, so they kind of like left him alone. Didn't stop me being left alone.
That's right.
It's just getting smashed because I'm shit at everything. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, did you have any guys like that had a bit of experience behind when you joined up?
No, because we were all juniors at that stage. You had whole junior troops, or you know, whole recruit troops. And so, and now we were all just 16 years and 4 months, and that was it. So there was no difference really at all.
So when you passed out of training, you know, where did you end up?
So came out of training in June of 73 and went straight to 4-5. There was only 2 of us that went to June, myself and Brian Tilley. Everybody else went to 4-1 Commando, which was at that stage was at Malta, and it was the growing up commando. You went there to have your first kind of you know, run around, get drunk a few times, and drive big motorbikes and stuff like that, and get that out of your system. So it was an 18 months draft, and so they all went there, and then a lot of them came to 4-5 after that, and so a lot of the people that were in training with me then joined 4-5 in the end of 74, start of 75.
Oh, nice. So did you get many sort of like Northern Ireland trips and stuff out of that?
So first Northern Ireland 74. I was still 17 when we went out, and then had my birthday out there. You had to stay in. Obviously, you couldn't go out on the street, so it was Sanger duty, watch on, stop on, for the first 3 weeks, and then after that, Falk Hill. It was known as Bandit Country. It was next, or just very close to Silverbridge and Crossmaglen, so it was right down there in South Armagh. On that tour, you know, we lost 2 guys, not my troop, but 4 troop lost 2 guys. And I heard my all-time hero at that stage. One of my big heroes at that stage was a guy called Dave Ford, and these guys got blown up in an OP and killed, obviously very killed, and blown to pieces. And they were Dave Ford and his team were sent to go and pick up the pieces, bag it up, because the farmer whose land it was on was complaining, wanted compensation and all sorts of things. So yeah, and you could hear in Dave's voice the absolute kind of, you know, holding back the tears, you know, sobbing away really. And it was just, I was like, Jesus, that is, you know, for him, in my eyes, my hero, to be like that. was something I'll never forget. Even now, I can, sometimes I can hear it. So, yeah. So it was a tough tour. It was a good, hard tour. An end days, it's only 4 months, so it was over pretty quick. But during the R&R phase, I actually had a 4-man brick to myself and had to run an OP and stuff like that. So that was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Being in charge and being given the opportunity to do it was great.
Did you end up doing many tours?
I think in total of 7 tours in Northern Ireland. Between
the sort of the 70s and the 90s, it was quite rife, wasn't it? Ireland was, the hot spot for the UK, really.
It was.
And we had presence all over the place, didn't we?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, it gave us a live fire kind of location, didn't it? It gave us somewhere to go. So I'd been shot at in South Armagh, which I was grateful for when you look back at it, because when we got to the Falklands and there was a big shoot up, it was like, oh, I've been there before, I know what that's like, and I know how I'm going to perform, sort of thing. So that was quite handy. And then, of course, the other thing was, and it really didn't happen for me until in Afghan. I had the opportunity, somebody shot my vehicle up, who was an Afghan soldier, but it was in civvies, put 3 rounds into my vehicle. And I got out and caught my weapon, pointed at him, and then, that kind of, why am I shooting him? Kind of that question, the card questions. Why am I asking, why am I shooting this guy? Is he a threat to me now? Do I need to shoot him? And I didn't. And that led to Liam Fox giving me a commendation for not shooting and not having an international incident. This guy thought we were trying to help some of the recruits escape over the wall. And so he shot at my vehicle thinking I was helping him. He got to understand anyway.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few stories like that, and you never really hear about them. Believe it or not, I actually have one story that's like that.
All right.
So we were doing a bit of a clearance in an Afghan village just outside of the town of Goresh, outskirts of Goresh, and I'd finished doing my supporting role of the ground troops, so I was just kind of like floating around and just providing different supports. Putting weapon systems down different waddies just to do a bit of cover. Yeah. And when I first flew out to Afghan, I was on the ground for like 3 days, Camp Bastion, and then I was straight out with J Company to Goresh in Goresh, and then I was straight out on the ground with my team. So it was pretty quick. And literally the 3rd day I was there, we got mortared. Never been mortared before and never been shot at before. Yeah. So it was a bit of, baptism by fire, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and the village where we were getting mortared from and some small arms coming from was this village that we were searching. So about 3 months later, we went back to search this village for weapons and an ID making stuff. And so I'd finished doing what I was doing, and there was a little road, and along this road, where the 50 cal machine gun bullets had hit the roofs and the GPMG bullets, they'd plastered all up with white. So I looked at them, this looks pretty cool. So I drove down the road, and as I was driving down the road, I came to a big quad, and there was loads of women and kids there. So it must have been, obviously it wasn't school time, but they were doing something. Yeah. And as I drove in there, they took one look at us and went, stopped, and just bomb burst. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. And then literally as that happened, a 10-man ambush team, Taliban ambush team, started jogging out of the green belt about 30 metres in front of us. I stopped. I looked at them. They stopped. They looked at us. And I went, fuck. And I couldn't fire, because if I'd have fired, I'd have killed loads of women and kids from the rounds going off. Yeah. So anyway, we ended up, reversing out of it. Really, really long story short, I ended up falling out of my vehicle. My radio came off. I ended up running after the vehicle because I'd fallen out of it. Anyway, we got out of there and we took them out in the end. But on the wash up afterwards, they said, Corporal Ice had a bit of a kick up. And I explained that, I didn't open fire. I could have killed all 10 of them in one go. But I'd have killed loads of civvies as well. Yeah. And everyone just laughed. And I was like, it was a weird morality for me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have been able to live myself, I don't think, if I'd have shot him.
Yeah.
We got him in the end, but at that very point, and I couldn't understand in my head, and still to this day, really can't figure out like why everyone laughed. Now, whether it was just because it was the way I was telling the story was quite funny. I'm not a funny bloke. I'm from Birmingham. I've got quite a dry, monotonous tone to my voice, so I don't think I was that funny.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, it was just a weird thing. Like,
did you put that down to stuff you'd done in Northern Ireland and the card system and the fact that you always had to justify why you would open fire, or no?
No, because we were on 429 Alpha then, so you know it was kind of almost weapons free to a certain extent.
Yeah, sure.
Just purely because it was kind of bandit country, and we were like fighting every single day.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't go out and have a 3-hour firefight,
you know,
something
you hadn't been out.
Something was wrong, like you know.
Yeah.
And that's why it just kind of it became sort of like the bit of the social norm, really.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's when once people near you have been killed, that's when that mental attitude changes and the approach, and that's what happened really with the Marine A thing, wasn't it? I mean, effectively they'd been drudged, and then, you know, one person too many had been killed, and that was it. They were kind of really out there going for it, really. So
I've got my opinion behind it. I'm not going to go too deep into this because everyone's got their own opinion to it, but at the end of the day, I think that cameras, social media has kind of made you too wary about things. Now, when you're in that kind of environment, and you know, granted, someone might have been killed, a couple of people might have been killed from friendly forces side, and you've taken out a few people. This guy's blatantly going to die, regardless of how much effort you put into him. Now, I didn't listen to the inquest or anything like that, so, you know, forgive my ignorance. But as a commander, I'd be like that, right, is he going to be a bit of a burden to us now, where we are? And he's going to die anyway, so is ending him a bad thing quickly? He's going to put him out of his misery? I don't know. But then when some numbskull videos it, and then it looks like an execution... Yeah. You haven't got a leg to stand on, really. It's like being on the gate, like you guys, right?
Yeah.
Some bloke comes in drunk and, you know, tries to cock the weapon, like used to be the funny thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Used to come in drunk and try and cock the guard bloke's weapon. But you get caught doing that, and then the next day you're like, no, it wasn't me. It's like, but you're on the camera, mate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So after those Northern Islands, we're kind of coming on to the Falklands bit. So obviously, it's kind of a big part of British military history. Massive part of it, really, especially in sort of like the last 40 to 50 years after the Second World War. You know, did you have any inkling whatsoever that it was coming around, or was it?
No, I was. It's my 26th birthday on the 1st of April, and April Fool's Day, and me and the missus' anniversary on the 2nd. So I thought I'd do that because it'd be easy to remember. You know, I won't ever forget that. Have my birthday card and then go, oh, anniversary card. So yeah, we were living in Arbroath at the time, and I don't think there was anybody had an inkling that it was about to hit. You know, the British government got completely caught out. The whole of the UK thought, what are the Argentinians doing invading blooming the Faroe Islands? You know, it was thought it was the north of Scotland. So yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, I had a knowledge of the Falkland Islands only because I nearly ended up on one of the teams going down there, the 8901, MP 8901. Didn't happen, but yeah. So I knew what was going. You know, I knew where it was, and people in recce pretty quickly because I was in 4-5 recce then. So yeah, we very quickly pinged it and knew what we were talking about.
Was there any kind of like build-up training to it or anything like that?
So 4-5 Commando hadn't gone to the Arctic that year. We'd done mountain training in Scotland, and we'd done it both from October through Christmas and then out the other side. So we did, and so there's a little bit of white shod on Ben Nevis and stuff like that, but not a lot. Myself and a guy called Dave Lazenby were seconded to help the BBC make a movie in that some sort of February, March, to help the BBC, and they were trying to get live pictures of a climb up the north face of Ben Nevis in winter, and they brought in a lady to kind of spice it up. She'd just been working with Hamish McInnes on this film with Sean Connery up in the Alps, and so they brought her in, and then a couple of other climbers came in. But then the whole of the UK's climbing gang turned up. It was a pretty bad winter, I think. In the time we were up there, so we were up there from sort of end of February through to the middle of March. I think there's like 13 people got killed in that year. It was a bad year. The pictures from the North Face never actually materialised because the day they were going to send them, they did do a live kind of thing with Swap Shop at the time, but the actual live pictures of the climbing never happened because the weather just turned on them on the day. But the guy who was making that movie or making that program was a guy called Michael Begg. Michael Begg was the top outdoor program guy. He was doing everything, royal weddings and the royal tournament and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, him being there with myself and Dave and a couple of other bootnicks turned up, at different times to help out. That's when we got to the behind the lines, the ML kind of the first of the ML programs. So yeah, and he was a fan ever since, right after that. From then on, Mike Begg was always trying to get things done with the Corps. So that was an interesting kind of bloke to know. He's good though.
So were you in ML at the time?
I was Falklands ML1 corporal. Yeah, I was just about to go on my seniors after that leave. So yeah, I was all fired up, ready to go. Nothing. I hadn't done too much prep because, like I say, we've been doing all this stuff with the BBC.
It was a little bit like when we went out to Afghan, on Jacana.
Yeah.
There was no kind of real prep for that.
No.
The planes went into the Twin Towers. 3 months later, 4-5s loaded onto a plane. Go on, out you go, fellas. Out you go to Bagram.
Yeah.
And then you land in the middle of Afghanistan, outside the capital, Kabul.
Yeah.
Living in 24 by 18s tents.
Yeah.
On camp beds.
Yeah, in 40 degrees.
In 40 degree heat.
And minus 30 in the winter.
Yeah, and everybody else is in accommodation, like the Americans and stuff,
yeah.
and we're basically like living like desert rats, basically.
Yeah.
It's pretty stinking. And the prep for that was, I think all I remember is we had a new troop boss. This is classic. This is new troop boss. Because I was in heavy weapons at the time.
Yeah.
And he was like, right, let's do a Bergen run around the airfield because there's an airfield at 4-5.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, let's carry the 50 cals on the ammo. And I was like, right, okay, it's fucking heavy, right? But yeah, let's do it as what the pamphlet says. Let's put the main body of the machine gun, top flap it.
Yeah. Put
the tripod and the soft mount on there. Right, the younger lads, you can carry the ammo. Well, you can only really carry like maybe an ammo box each because they weigh like 16 kilos each. And then off we go around this airfield and we're just looking at each other. This bloke is smoking crack. What's going on? And that's all I remember my build-up being. No shooting packages. No. Maybe a bit of rifle. Shooting at Barry Budden, maybe the odd day here and there.
Yeah.
I was never good at shooting anyway. I was always a suppressor. That's the way I used to say to myself. Yeah. It used to take me 9 times to pass my shooting test. That's why it's got automatic on the rifle, right?
Yeah.
Just keep pressing it every now and again, get the rounds down. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so like we had no build up to that either, and then we were literally on the plane and straight out.
Suddenly there you are.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, right, what can we do to be better now that we're here and it's really too late?
Yeah, exactly. How did you find all of packing all your gear? Did you get many kit lists, or did you just cuff it? Or?
So turned up the first day. So they'd come around the Maverick quarters at 6 o'clock in the morning, honking the horn, get into camp. So into camp we go, get there, and the Falklands have been invaded. We're going to go down there and sort it all out. So then the first order is right. We're going to be taking BVs. Each section recce will have a BV, and we'll work it from there. So pack to go to work, to do your fighting in, and everything else on your BV. 45 minutes passed, just about getting to the point where it's nearly finished. Stop. Okay, right now we're going to take Land Rovers and trailers. So get the BVs unpacked, but so Land Rovers and trailers, and we changed the way we were going to travel probably 8 times in that first day. Got to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They went, right, go home, come back tomorrow. So we came back the next day on the 2nd. And so then someone had more of an idea. So, okay, so what we're going to do is take you used to get issued a suitcase then, didn't you? So you get your suitcase, your kit bag, make sure it's all named up, tagged up and everything else. And that'll go heavy baggage. And have all your fighting kit with you, your weapon, obviously, systems and all that stuff with you. And we're going to go like that. And so that's pretty much how it stayed for the next 2 days. So we're on a weekend by now. And I think whoever was running it, the ship wasn't ready for us. We were going to go on the Stromness, which was a refrigeration ship, which had been converted into one really big, and a support company pretty much on it only. 104 beds, one exit, one entrance in and out of the hold where we were going to be. Thankfully, it had a bit of a flight deck and plenty of outdoor kind of space. But yeah, so we drove down in, I don't know, it must have been a fleet of for our particular part, going to the ship we were going to, it was only two coach loads of stuff onto the ship, and then we sailed on the 5th. We went out of Pompey on the 5th of April. Steamed away quite fast initially, and then everything slowed down because everyone realised that all the ships, like you had ships with no helicopters that had submarine parts on it and submarine parts on it. So it was obviously going to be a long kind of shake it all out and get it all sorted. Nobody at that time thought it was going to come to a war. No, won't be anything like that. It's all going to be fine. We'll all just get halfway, maybe get to Ascension, a little bit of diplomacy. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, the Argentinians, we didn't think you'd come this far. We're off. We're going back. But no. So
was there a kind of a feeling of denial, like on the ship, really, like, and when you're talking about changing vehicles and stuff like that, surely people would have known what the Falklands environment would have been like.
I think most people thought it was like Dartmoor, and thinking that the tracks were the same, but the Falkland Islands had no tracks like that. When we went across, it was like proper roughest part of Dartmoor you could come across, and you wouldn't even attempt a Land Rover. The locals did because they knew what they were doing. Nice long wheelbases on the Land Rovers and stuff like that. But no, we were kind of, everyone was like, well, the ground's like this and like that, and some people that knew, we had a guy with us that had been to 8901 2 years before, so he was great. So he gave us all the kind of things that we needed to know about the ground. But we very quickly got into a training regime where it was all about recognition. So we knew that they had the Skyhawk, and we knew they had the Super Étendard. And so those aircraft, we knew how to, and then they had the LTP-7, which is like an armoured personnel carrier, which the Americans had sold them. So we did loads of different things to work out different things. And then we had all the guys from mortars were doing mortar fire controlling all the time, day in, day out, just until it was absolutely so sweet and really good. Got to Ascension, and we were all quite up on all the things we thought we needed to know. People were happy with what they were doing. Things like IWSs, the first generation IWS, I got given one of those. and it weighed an absolute ton, and I carried that all the way from start to finish. But and it might have saved my life one day. But so yeah, it was a hodgepodge. People were asking, can we fire off the back end at, things, but the ship was doing up and down, and the bag of rubbish was, was not really a very good target and stuff. So it was just a matter of doing something. And then at Ascension, then I think we had one day when we had a range day, we were able to shoot properly and calibrate and stuff, weapons. But, so we were there a long time. There was very little to do. People started jumping onto, like, you had a mate from LC, you getting over to the ship, and he'd come to deliver something. Can you take us to the Canberra? We can go and have a beer, because they still had beer going on the Canberra. So over to the Canberra, and then all boats have stopped working. Oh, we're here for the night. Okay, so we better get our heads down somewhere. Find somewhere to get your head down. Next morning, looking for a boat, wondering if you've been missed on your own ship. It was... it was good fun, really. And did the yomp up to the green part of the island. Ascension's got, it's all rock. It's basically a volcanic rock. And then just on the top where the Marines used to live in the 1800s, is nice and green. And so we did a yomp up to that but that was the only physical training that was of any value to us, really, to our legs. You imagine. So by the time we get down there, it's like 7 weeks. So you come from mountain training where you've got loads of good legs on, and now all of a sudden your legs was weak, like matchsticks, and you're like, you want me to carry how much weight? Yeah. So it was a good time. I mean, you knew that it was being taken really seriously at Ascension, because there was so many assets there. There was blooming, Harriers about. There was blooming helicopters of every kind about, and stuff being moved from ship to ship to ship. And yeah, so you knew the hierarchy were taking it seriously, but you still didn't believe there was any likelihood that you were going to, go to war.
Regardless of all that, it must have been quite an impressive sight to see all that shipping and all that, all that
amazing
ordnance that's there. Yeah,
it was amazing. It's stuff coming out of one ship, and you think, what's that for? And then you sort of see a rapier system. Oh, right, that's, they can bring in rapier. That's good news, stuff like that. But it was impressive, and you knew that at the management level, we're obviously still thinking we're posturing. We're still 4,000 miles short of the target. So let's kind of just take it with a pinch of salt for the minute.
What was your first sight of the Falklands, or was it just kind of a case of you were all kept in the hold until you kind of got to the forming up point, and then Bob's your uncle? So
we cross-decked at Ascension from Stromness onto Tristram, the one that was next to the Galahad that got blown up. So we were on the Tristram, and so that, can imagine going through the roaring 40s was not comfortable. Everyone's chucking their guts up everywhere. Just horrible. No places to train. The weather's so rough and dangerous, you couldn't go outside. So it was another best part of 2 weeks till we got into the South Atlantic area. So, we're now at like 6-7 weeks since we started. Then cross-decked again into Intrepid. There was not an inch of spare space on Intrepid. Just nothing as far as space was concerned. On the day we went aboard, that was the day that the helicopter had gone down with the SAS guys on.
Is that the one that fell off the back of the ship because of the bad weather?
Albatross. Yeah. They say there's an albatross in the intake, and yeah. So that was a Sea King that popped in, and it had too many people on it. Truth be known, it had far too many people on it, and that was, of course, that was their second thing down there, because they'd also had a nightmare on. At Grytviken, they'd had a nightmare there as well. So with a helicopter, the weather conditions weren't right, and yet they went ahead with the job. And so I lost the Wessex 5 there, but nobody was killed in that one. Yeah, we got down there. So on the day we went ashore, we were supposed to be in darkness, and it didn't actually materialise. We got to the you go to stations, whatever they call it. Disembarking stations, and we got to it, and we had an LCU for basically the whole of support company. We're in one LCU, packed in tight, supposed to be in the dark. It was now daylight, and the and Fanning Head was raging, and we had to go underneath Fanning Head, and so you had the SAS and MSB beating up a company of Argentines that were up on there. And yeah, so we went in under. It was daylight. It was okay. And we ended up landing at Ajax Bay, next to where the medical centre was, the famous medical centre, the red and green medic machine.
So from the point of what day was it? The 2nd
of April.
Of April you left, and then the 21st of May was when you went into Ajax Bay, 1982.
Yeah,
it must have been a relief to get off that ship as well.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone was like that, thank God, because you see a ship as just a big grey target, don't you? Especially with Argentinian pilots, the way they are, or the Argentines and their reputation of being far, low flying, fast moving, and that. So yeah, it was great, and we were very lucky in Recce Troop. Myself and Ginge Davidson got pinged. We were going to do an OP straight away. So as soon as we got on the ground, pack your kit up. You're going to be on an OP for six days. That's going to be your job, top of the Sussex Mountains. So that was great because that gave us a chance to get away from everybody else as well. But that was one of the hardest jumps I've ever done in my life. It was a climb. I don't know. Have you seen what a rock run is?
Yes. So
it's like a river of rocks, and the slippiest things you've ever come across in your life. Really, really slippery. And no matter what kind of sort of Vibram sole, wow, I don't care. Most people didn't have Vibram soles. The best people had at that age was the Hawkins slipper, which was a Carrymore boot. Which that was, some people had bought them themselves. I was pleased to say I had a pair, and that was better than anything else that was out there at that time. But so we got up into this OP position, which was stonking, really, really good. We had Ajax Bay behind us, and the first day, so we set up in night as you do, check comms, all the bits and pieces, went through all the things. So to our front, far on our right hand side, at sort of if we say that straight across is at 12 o'clock, so say about 2:30 on our right side was Goose Green, about 25 kilometres, and then on our left hand side, about 1:45 was Darwin. So it's a spittle of land between Goose Green and Darwin, which is great. Very, as it turns out, that's massively important to the Argentinians. So they're coming out of lots of different airports or air stations in Argentina and coming straight across on a bearing to hit this spittle of land, which is their RP. And then they're either splitting left or right. So very quickly on that first day, the first thing we were told, right, you need to give us air raid warning red if you see something. Well, we could see them before they got to Goose Green, sometimes, depending if they were close together or not. We could give them a rough number, whether they're going to come from the north or the south. And so that was our job initially. 4 Skyhawks from the north, inbound now, air raid warning red. And of course, then there was no communication between the land and the ships. So then it became a light, flash, 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 light, and then the nearest ship would sound its horn, and then that would go around. And so by the time it got to the last ship, the aircraft were already coming in. So then, of course, the ships were using Sea Dart, Sea Slug, and Sea Cat, which were all wire guided. So majority of the Argentinian pilots chose to come over our OP to get down on the ridge the other side. So they'd fire, a couple of ships would fire 1, 2, maybe 3 missiles, chase the thing. Of course, the Argentinian pilot would dip down really quick on the other side of the ridge, and then these guys, because they can no longer see the target and they were wire guided, they had to blow them up. And so we were getting showered in wreckage, something horrible. For that day, it was, weather kind of was on our side then after that, and it wasn't so bad the next day. But the next day, here's an absolute classic. The next day, we're up there and been in the OP, we're all settled, the routine's working well. And over to our left, about 2.5k, is a para OP. So we tried talking to them, but they didn't want to talk to us because we had different authentications or something like that. So they were there and they were getting ready they were preparing a place for the Rapier to go. So that was them anyway. All of a sudden, we're thinking, what's that noise? And there's an artillery round over the top, bang into the water, and there's a helicopter there. So what's happened is the powers, the tide is going out, and they've seen this shaft of rock coming out of the water and think it's a submarine. So they've gone on the net. We've got an enemy submarine here. We need some artillery on it. So, okay. Somehow, God knows, this is communication at its best, I think, ever. Within 20 minutes, a Pinger helicopter, a Sea King with a sonar drone, turns up. And it's there and it's going, right, you can see it's on the water. And there's this guy guiding artillery onto it. First round was 100 metres off its tail. So we interjected, spoke direct to Golf 29. Stop, that's a Sea King. Spoke it in clear. That's a Sea King, don't shoot down. So these guys have been, not used to working near the coast, so you can understand how they'd see a kind of a straight piece looking like a bit of a conning tower. Similarly, never seen a Sea King before, always used Pumas. And so there was the next big problem. So we had to stop that. But that was unfortunate, but good that nobody got killed.
There's quite a big story, really, isn't there, about the Falklands through the communication errors, because there was communication errors between, like you say, between the ships and land. You're saying there that you were on different frequencies or different networks to the paras. Yeah. Where now, the equipment and the guys used are all like an all-informed network that is secure, and it's got all the crypto and stuff that's inside it to stop any outside people listening in.
Yeah, sure.
But do you know what? And this is, I don't know, you might have a different opinion on this. I always used to think that if anyone was listening to what we were saying anyway, they wouldn't fucking understand it.
No.
I don't understand it half the time. It was like that. Like, I never understood why you could just never talk normally.
Yeah.
And then say over afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to speak in code?
Yeah.
What, do you not understand English?
Yeah.
Like quite literally.
Yeah, yeah.
But apparently it's like good form to do that, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think so now. I think they just do it's all clear speech now. But yeah, that was another aggravation, wasn't it? It was just another thing that was a pain in the bum. Trying to remember what you called the AE rep. And AE was what? I can't remember. Something like that.
Yeah, or someone said
split fast or something. Yeah.
You're trying to ask a question and someone goes, well, you need to speak to this person. Well, what the fuck's his call sign? I don't know. And like that, look, I've got my notes out. It wasn't in orders. No one told me what his call sign was. All right, I'll just go up and ask him then, shall I?
Yeah, it was a bit... Well, nothing as big as that had happened for donkey's years. And I mean, the lessons learnt from it were colossal,
So you went from Ajax Bay, you done your OP.
Yeah, so we were up there for 4 days. One of the few places I've been lost at night. So I went out from the OP down to a place where we'd seen a little bit of a stream, got down there, and then came back up as black can be. Just no fog, no mist, just black. No other light. And I was like, where are they? And I'd only just left them, and I just filled all the water bottles up, coming back up, and I'm like, where are they? In the end, I had a light on my watch. I got them to get the IWS, and I turned around in a circle. That's us now. Come that way. So I had to walk. And I could have been there all night otherwise. It was just, so black. But, so we did I think we did 3 nights and 4 days up there. And then we came back and then ready for the move across. So, yeah.
And that was the move from Ajax Bay to San Carlos.
Yeah, San Carlos. So into San Carlos. That was on an LCP. So just a little one for us, because we were going to be leading. And, of course, I was the youngest ML1 anywhere about. So, okay, here's a map. So the first map was coastal, not a blooming... So it was like a chart. That'll see you all right for the first couple of miles. Then when you get inland a bit, here's a map. I folded it for you. Oh, thanks. So tuck that in your shirt as well. Oh, and by the way, you're like, no more. So anyway, we at this stage, we're wearing 100-pound packs. There's no one who was under 100 pounds. So we got off the boat. We punched out as quick as we could to get clear of San Carlos, got out of the way, and then wait, stop. And we're thinking they need more room to shake out behind us. And so we were like, well, what are we doing by way of a formation? And it was like, one man behind the other, just single file, go for it. Okay, so for us, it was a nightmare because we had some good yompers with us and stuff. And so we did about the first 4K. And then I thought, I better have a look at this map they've given me. So I had a bearing I was going on already. So opened the map up and there's this, all the grid, all the maps there. But in the middle, and the bit I'm just about to look at, there's about 8 squares with nothing in it. It's a little piece of black print that says, at the time of overfly, this area is covered with cloud. Didn't matter because, in another 4K further on, there's going to be a telephone line. I know there's going to be, but we had to kind of just go for it as best we could. But it was hard work because the ground was the worst piece of Dartmoor you've ever come across. And the weights, and we've been 5 weeks, nearly 6 weeks laid off. No physical activity with a big old weight on you, more weight than we'd ever carried for everybody. So stop, start. Hang on a minute, stop there, wait for us. It was like that. It was painful. But we did get to New House, and we went into the we cleared the house because we got there first. We cleared the house, and we were happy that was fine. And then somehow we got away with staying in it. So weather conditions at that time, temperature between sort of -5 and +2, snow, rain, sleet, everything all in a day, constant wind. Wind's probably doing 7 to 9 mile an hour all the time. That's it, all the time. And then you get some gusts that were up there in 20, 25.
I can't imagine your waterproofs and stuff like that would have been that good, because when I joined training, we had like Pusser's tea bags.
That's it.
Which basically meant that you had a little bit of coverage, but where actually the seams met, there was no waterproof in there, so you got wet anyway.
The Pusser's tea bag.
Yeah.
So because we were Arctic, we had the reversible green one side, white the other.
Okay.
Which were much heavier. But if you had to walk in them, you just sweating like a pig. There was no, Gore-Tex. Oh, no, nothing breathable. No. And of course, then with that, you had this big white side. So I wasn't even carrying them. I was like, nah, I'm not even going to carry it because I wouldn't wear it. So, so that was the end of day one. And then the command decision was, right, tomorrow morning, you need to pack your Bergens up. You may not see them for a couple of days. You need to be carrying and wearing everything you need for 3 days. And so that's what we did the next day. We walked out, and that was much better. I mean, still carrying a lot of weight because the ammunition, 7.62, you start carrying over 100 of them, and it's, as you well know, it's heavy stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I've done a few exercises over Dartmoor on those baby heads. Horrendous at the best of times.
They are.
And they used to flare my feet up with blisters like no end.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for people's perspectives unless if you're listening to this. Dartmoor is a bit of like a national park in the south of England. It's just like loads of rolling hills, forestry blocks. I'm reading off a Pusser's pamphlet here, when you do your corporal's course and your seniors course of what the land looks like.
Yeah.
But rolling lowlands, highlands, inclement weather,
rocky outcrops,
grassy tussocks. Is that what it is?
Tussock grass. Yeah, just horrible.
It just roll your feet over everything, and not having that look forward to like some solid ground like a track and just constantly doing that, but actually having to fight over it too. Yeah, it must have been pretty daunting. I do remember something though. So when I was in training, because I used to read a lot of like books and stuff about the Corps. It's like when when you're young, you're like pissed at
Can't
everything
get enough
you're
of
doing.
It. Yeah.
And I just remember being at Okehampton Camp, so battle camp on Dartmoor. And we went up to one of the first tours. First time I'd ever been up to a tour like that. And I just remember looking at it and go like, fuck me, if this is what the Falklands was like, imagine trying to fight up through that, kill the enemy, but like they're got the high ground as well, and you're coming up to it. So there must have been misery.
It was so horrible. Luckily, mostly the uphill bits were always in full contact. Well, or unluckily, whichever way you look at it. But so there wasn't too much fighting on the uphills, apart from those final attacks when we had to take all the high ground at the end. But yeah.
So you got to New House, you were there for a little bit. So when did you move on to Douglas Settlement?
Same day, next day, up early, got out, got to Douglas Settlement. And the thing was, we knew that if we got to Teal, there was people still there, and it was important that we got there. So Recce were given the option to move a little bit more quickly and independently and get to Teal as quickly as we could. And just outside Teal, some Land Rovers came out and picked us up and took us in. So we did the searching and checking and making sure they'd all gone. They said the Argentinians had been a bit bullish, not unpleasant, not really bad to them, but they took all their food and stuff like that, and so they'd run out of food and things like that.
So up to this point, had you had any up close contact with the enemy? It was
Nothing
just
at all.
There's just clearing land as you move across it.
Just massive open spaces, walking across them and not seeing them. And of course, they were after Fanning Head. I would imagine they filtered back from that and then back again and just tried to keep ahead of us because they knew we were coming by then. So
which is a strange thing, right? You've invaded an island that you wanted, whether it's for propaganda purposes or not.
Yes,
that's regardless, really.
Yeah,
but you've got another force coming to take what you've invaded back, but you have got the overwhelming supremacy.
It's numbers,
with numbers.
Yeah.
So why would you start withdrawing? Surely, if you're going to invade the country, you'd hold it and you'd swarm numbers at it too.
Yeah. Well, they had at that stage, I think about 7,500, 8,000 people on the Falklands at that stage. In the end, they had over 11,500. But at that stage, so what I think happened was that at Fanning Head, they took a real kick in, and those people that were left alive, I don't need to be hanging around for this, I'm off. But basically worked out which way Stanley was, and off they were on their bike. We did see, there was sight of some commanders taking their conscripts' boots away so that they couldn't run away overnight. And there were later on we saw the evidence of guys having a gun held to them to make them stay where they were. So briefly describe about what you're talking about with Fanning Head. So Fanning Head was an overwatch into the Falkland Sound, so you can understand why they wanted that. So and obviously the ships were there, but they didn't appear to have anything to engage the ships with, and the SAS were keeping them busy and giving them a good kicking, and they had like mortars and everything there. They took the whole blooming shebang and just bombed the living bejesus out of them. And so it was they got hammered, no doubt about it. It was a company strength, high casualty rate, and those that were left were like, well, I don't need to stay here now, there's no one here telling me I've got to stay, I've got my boots, I'm off. That looks like the way home. Yeah. So
Douglas Settlement, much going on there?
No, next to nothing. There was nobody there, nobody at home. There was only a couple of little houses there, and it was it was just like, okay, we've hit that next target. And so the whole unit again went into kind of all round defence and just hunkered down. The best anyone had was a poncho. So me and my buddy, Taff Crawford, we just hunkered up together. We took it on turns to be the outside one. So, just cuddled up together, spooned each other, and just like turn around, turn over, change spoon. And it was cold, wet and horrible. And everyone's feet were horrid by now, been soaking. And of course, your feet weren't hard because you've been on a ship in your trainers for weeks. So, yeah, people were starting to get niggles.
What was morale like at this stage? Do you remember?
I think morale was up. Everyone was really pooped, absolutely knackered, probably more knackered than they'd been, only because we'd been deconditioned with the travelling. And then when we got there, we were asked to do something even harder than we'd done previously. So I think, everyone was struggling, and there were people going down with twisted knees and stuff like that. And but in general terms, the weather was kind of inclement, but wasn't desperate for that couple of days. And so it was certainly within Recce. We were like, another day, another dollar. So we see somebody tomorrow, sort of thing. Then of course we went to Teal, and they came out from Teal to meet us. They were really pleased to see us. Lovely family. They put this huge, great boiler of water on so everyone could have boiling water and that. And then our kit came back 2 days after that. So we've been about 5 days without a sleeping bag. And they let us go into their shearing sheds. So apart from the fact you came out smelling and your fingers were all lanolinned up, apart from that, that was a good thing. So we're getting quite close by the time we got to Teal. We were certainly not quite in striking distance, but close to it.
So when was how did you feel about the big march across the Falklands going towards, Port Stanley, you got Mount Kent and then inevitably the Two Sisters as well?
Yeah, sure. So
that must have been coming up and quite imminent as well.
It was indeed. So from Teal, once you went out of Teal, you dropped down from Teal along the coast and there was a track. First track we'd had, God. And they had a track that went round down to Mount Estancia House. So we knew we could have some track time. But the first thing, we'd nearly all got our boots dry. And then the first thing you had to cross a bloody great stream. And so your feet were wet again. But you were on a track, which made life a lot easier.
Was that the track where that historical picture was taken with the flag on the back?
No, that was a little bit further on. That was,
Oh.
That was a bit further on. But the Union Jack, yeah. So we yomped along there, Teal, and then we came to Bluff Cove Peak. So Bluff Cove was over to our right as we were going, and the sea was closest on our left. And so the land is getting narrower, and we're getting towards Stanley now. And so, we're starting to get into battle mode, starting to think about, how we're going to do things.
Were you tasked to go forward and do any sort of reconnaissance at this point, or did you have to get a little bit closer before that?
So no, we had so at Bluff Cove Peak, that's where the commando unit went into its final kind of location. It was good because it was surrounded with rock runs. It had boulders everywhere. People could make little nests, little machine gun nests and stuff like that out of it. It was good cover. Anyone attacking it would have really struggled. Although we were in some parts at the bottom of it, obviously people were up at the top edge of the hill. The first thing they'd done was put the mortar team out, 4 of them, or 5 of them, 6 of them, maybe 6. And they were to go and try and find a mortar baseline they could fire us in onto the Sisters. So it was their job. And then at the same time, they put out Andy Shaw and 5 Troop Yankee Company to do an ambush on a track. Trying to find a mortar line anyway is pretty tough because you can't have too much. You can't have rocks in it because it'll break the bottom. Well, you've been heavy weapons, so that sort of stuff. So it's really hard to find. And so the likelihood is that the mortar team, 4 of them, had not found what they needed, and so they were coming back. And they hadn't been given a wide enough berth to go around the ambush site. And Andy Shaw was talking to him time and time again. Is there any other friendly forces? No, you're in there on your own, definitely on your own. And sure enough, then they victualled up the mortars lads. So it's Jan Leeming, Peter Fitton, Keith Phillips, and Andy Uren. They were all killed. And those are the guys that had helped us in Recce the most, getting us up to speed. So it was devastating. I will never forget Andy Shaw's face as he came round the corner back into HQ to kind of confirm with the CO, what had gone on. And he was empty. His eyes were gone. He was just nothing. He was like God, If you read some of the books, they say that he just then got on with it again and stuff like that. He might have done, but he has been in a bad way for a while. Bless him, So
something like that's never gonna
go away.
Leave you.
No,
it's never gonna leave you.
No.
It's unfortunately, you can bring out these cliche sayings like that's it's what happens in war.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But you would have probably thought back in that time that you had the top of the range communications and stuff like that, and people know where each other are on the back, on the battlefield, which is, not 9 times out of 10 you kind of do.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you know, you fast forward 30 years, 40 years, you know, in the Middle East.
Yeah.
You've got super high tech stuff there, you know, GPSs, all sorts of stuff. And I'm like that sometimes. Are they supposed to be there? They're not supposed to be in that grid square. And you're like, right. Where are you? Yeah, I'm here. No, you're not.
That's right, yeah.
You know, and it still happens in this day and age too.
It does. I think the fact, well, you know, mortar fire controllers are great map readers. And so I don't think any blame at their door at all. As far as I'm concerned, bad communication, really bad communication. You know, obviously, whoever sent the mortars out, which would have been support company commander, didn't info the people that needed to know, and vice versa. You know, 5 Troop Yankee didn't tell the people that needed to know. But yeah, sad day. Yeah, not good at all. But like you say, it's a cliche saying, but it happens in war, doesn't it? I have to say that this time we, as Recce Troop, were always more scared about coming back into our own lines than we were going out towards the Argentinian lines. We're like, Jesus, here we go. This is the dangerous bit. Here we go.
That's where you take it right back to recruit training. Do you remember when you were in a triangular harbour?
Yeah.
And you're coming in, you got your passwords, you got your double negative passwords and stuff, and you come in the crucifix position with your rifle in one hand and your arm out in the other hand. You go, halt! Who goes there? Yeah. It's like something out of Sharp, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you're like, oh my God. Please don't let this be a little guy who's really all upset and frightened and scared. But we didn't have any incidents like that with going in and out. We always stopped short, radioed in. We are just outside your lines. We'll be in 10 minutes. Can you warn your sentry? So that seemed to work.
At this point, before you sort of like moving forward, the main sort of yomp into battle.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about having that thought process that, you know, this isn't
going to happen.
This isn't really going to happen.
Yeah.
Was it more of a reality that you were actually on the ground, or is it still going forward? You're still kind of having these conversations in the downtime that this is just going to get called and we're going to come back and we're going to spend another 7 weeks, you know, sailing back home again?
No. So we were all convinced as we were going down the South Atlantic from Ascension, when the Belgrano went down, everyone's like that. Yeah, we're going to go. And then when the Sheffield went down 2 days later, we're definitely going to be doing the business. And so before we got off the ships in the Falkland Sound, we were very much, this is going to be a battle. Yeah. So
you're at Teal Inlet.
Yeah.
You're sorting all your kit out to head forward and for the last stretch.
Yeah.
You know, just explain a little bit, you know, what that was like.
Okay, so the next 3 or 4 days are going to be all from Bluff Cove Peak. So we're sat in this little area there, and the idea is now fighting patrols, harass the enemy, try and get patrols in behind the enemy, stuff like that. So the tasking came up for Recce to put in a covert patrol that would go in and gather information. Basically, that was the task. Get in there, get all the information you can possibly get, and get back out and give it to, bring it back. So we decided, or Chris decided, that needed to be a slightly bigger patrol. So there's the 2 teams, mine and Ginge Davidson's team, and we got bombed up, got ready to go. Chris led it, so he led us over the top and then down towards the Murrell Bridge and the River Murrell, which is on the side of the Two Sisters. So once we'd gone to the high point, we could see the target easily. By this time, the artillery were up on the ridge, and they could have line of sight. They could actually see the Two Sisters on certainly the eastern ridge. So the night we went in, it was pea soup. You could not see your hand behind your back. It was just absolutely blind, and it was all on compass bearings, and we were going in. Yeah, okay, we should come across a flat bit for a little while here. Yeah, okay, now we should start climbing up. Yeah, we're climbing up. We could hear the Argentinians coughing, rattling mess tins, things like that, things that kind of unprofessional. Occasional flash of a light, maybe someone having a cigarette or something. And we knew we were close, but it was more hearing things than it was seeing, because it was so foggy. The cloud had come down and you just couldn't see anything. So we were then, it's starting to get towards daylight, and so we thought we'd better hunker down somewhere. So we found this little spot about a third of the way up the eastern sister. Little place where we could get covered on three sides by rock, and just one in and out kind of spot. It wasn't big enough to hold all of us. It held about three of us, and then the others kind of splayed out around and were giving cover. Still couldn't see anything, so we put a couple of people out. So John Davidson and Davey Livingston, they went out and they did a recce around in amongst the clouds and the rocks, and came back with loads of info. So as we were looking down the ridge now, on our left side was a minefield and some troops. On our right side was a company in defence, and that was no more than, from our little hidey hole, no more than 40 metres away. To the ridge went down, and that's where they were, the nearest edge to us anyway. So anyway, the Argentinians, about 4:00 in the afternoon, so it got daylight, and we sat there through the daylight. Absolutely freezing day, hands were absolutely falling off, and the wind was strong, and we couldn't get out of that very much. Been raining, sleeting, snowing, and raining, sleeting. Been there about 18 hours now, and we've just like a couple of biscuits AB and a tin of paste. And you're like, oh my god, starving, hungry, and so the Argentinians then, for some reason, and I think it's because Bluff Cove, the Welsh Guards were coming round in the ships towards Bluff Cove. They came in and put themselves across the ridge line, facing towards Bluff Cove. So they weren't facing up the ridge towards us, and they weren't facing down the ridge to where we wanted to go. They were directly across it, so transverse it. We counted them in, about 35 of them, So a strong troop. And so we're like, okay. So me, the boss, and John had a chat. Artillery, try a bop of artillery. Trouble was, their furthest part away from us was only 300 metres and 700 metres safety and all that. And Foxy went, nah, we'll just do it. We'll just pop them one on, because it's in a straight line. It'll be a piece of cake. And they fired two, and then they apologised. They couldn't fire any more because they'd been told to save ammo for the next task.
So this is the artillery fired a couple of rounds. Yeah,
so fired a couple, and we think someone picked up a fragment or something like that, but got some sort of injury. So the thing we hadn't noticed, no antennas at all anywhere, and that was because they had no radios, and they decided to send a runner. So we're all there, and we can see what's going to happen. The guy comes out, he's got his rifle on his shoulder, on his sling on his shoulder. He's like that, trudging up, dead slow. He's bored. Why did I get to do this sort of look? And so then we had a stab plan. If we got close enough, stab and hide him away. If not, then it was going to be shoot and scoot. So he got to within about, 35 metres of us, if that, maybe only 25 metres. And he looked up just at the wrong time and saw Davey, slotted him straight away, bang, down. He's only a young lad, clearly a conscript. Not interested, didn't want to be there. But Davey got him square, nice and quick, bang, down. And then that was it. We shook out, the 9 of us in a straight line. Boss was on the right-hand edge. I was in the middle, and Davey and John was on the left-hand side, and we started fighting through. Confusion amongst them was huge. We were just, doing our pepper potting thing. You've practiced this a million times on the airfield at 4 or 5, so it's not too difficult. Hands were not working. We'd been still for so long, trying to do a magazine change. It's horrible, like, oh God, I can't do this. I'm like, just absolutely terrible for the first little while. Then the blood gets going and things start surging around, and let's get on with it. And so, we fought our way through. And John was carrying 2 66s, And he decided, right, it's time, we'll give him a 66. Had this machine gun that the officer was holding a pistol over this guy, so he couldn't run away. And he was getting a little bit accurate. He was starting to get a bit close to us. So John decided he was going to 66 it. So he gets the 66 out, and we had the drill, firing 66, 3, 2, 1, bang, and it goes. And sure, it went off. But just as he fired it, someone tried to surrender in front of the rock where this guy was on the machine gun. So he stood up and put his hands up and took this 66 in the chest. It didn't go off. It just folded him up like a cheap suitcase. No, it didn't hit anything hard enough to make it go off. So that was a source of, like, bloody hell, did you see that? Everyone along the line, you'd be thinking, concentrate, where am I going to go next? But no, it's like, bloody hell, did you see that? It's like that. So next thing, John gets another one out and bangs it down towards the officer that's holding over the gunner. So that was us moving forward, getting closer to where the officer was. And Chris and I both were like, we need to get the officer, because he'll have stuff on him. None of the others will. They're worthless. So we closed that down. John then was now playing with grenades. This bloody Yorkshireman with a throw like you wouldn't believe. He's just about to throw. Don't waste it, John. No, I'll get him from here. Whoomp, straight into this guy's blooming back pooch. Like, bloody hell, how'd you throw that far? I couldn't throw that far. Anyway, boom. So that's another bit of devastation over there. Me and Foxy closing in, get to the officer, take him out. Through his pockets and everything else. He's got his diary, he's got pictures of his wife, he's got...
So did you do, like, tackled him to the ground or something?
No, we shot him. Yeah. He was hiding behind a rock, forgot he had his helmet on, and was, like, just coming up like that, and donk, got him right between the eyes, yeah. So that was him down. So, bit messy, but... So yes, went through his body, picked up all the stuff we could, loads of maps, all his stuff drawn on it, beautiful stuff, loads and loads of intel, just perfect. Quick as we could, tucking it in our jackets, right, let's go. And we fought our way through the rest of the way. Did a quick reorg. I kind of took charge of that just to make sure everyone had a fresh mag on. Down to the bottom, across the open ground. Somebody had a crack at us with a bigger machine gun, probably a 50 cal. Had a crack at us for a couple of rounds, couple of bursts, but it wasn't really very close. And then by then we were 3/4 gone, but we were on our chin straps. We were absolutely dying. Got back to camp, obviously. Didn't know then Chris had taken a round in the hand. He'd taken it in the bottom of his hand there. And so by his little finger. And so he'd taken a shot around there. And he was the only one injured in any way, shape or form. The rest of us were all great. We were going as hard as we could to get back. Did the pre-call to X Company. We're coming in through your lines. And sure enough, they were there, ready. Yeah. Okay, great. It's pitch black by now, dark. Went through. Foxy went back down the line and debriefed Mike Hitchcock, who was the OPSO. He was a SB guy on a broadening billet. So he spoke to him, and then that was it. Me and Taff were just thinking about getting cuddled up, and the CO went, "Okay, lads, you can have the BVs for tonight." And so, I mean, we were close to going down with hypothermia, and they brought us food and stuff. So the HQ guys looked after us, and I think there was 5 in one BV and 4 in the other. It just crashed out as where we were. Up the next day, and then that was it. Really, we were then waiting for the next kind of job. So,
what was your reflection on that? Because obviously you hadn't been in, apart from Ireland.
Yeah,
that had been like your first sustained
sort
of section. Normally when we talk about how we take on an enemy force, you're normally like double.
Treble.
So like a section to take on one person. A troop would take on like a fire team.
Yes.
And so forth.
Yeah.
You've got like a section's worth of blokes taking on a troop.
Yeah.
Which is, you're kind of talking about a 2-to-1 sort of ratio, aren't you, really?
The wrong way round.
Yeah.
Completely. You know, if you're the attacking force, the last thing you want to be is outnumbered. So, yeah, I mean, but it was a matter of life-saving, you know. We had to get out or die sort of thing. And that kind of spurred, you knew that you were in trouble if you got separated from the gang. You know, if you're outside the skirmishing team, then you'd be in trouble. So, yeah, it was good. It was good. It happened all on its own, really. I'll be perfectly honest. You know, we had drilled it time and time again. And it happened exactly as you expect, apart from a bit slow on the mags, changing mags because bloody hands were freezing. But apart from that, yeah, it was all pretty good. The information they got back from that told them everything they needed to know. The maps for the whole of this Falkland Islands, you know, he had a map on him that showed everybody where they were. In his diary, we had Dinger Bell was a Spanish speaker, captain or major then, a captain I think, and he could, you know, read it all, and it was all kind of really top level, good info, really good info. So yeah, that was a successful one, and a very, very worthy, in my opinion, MC for Chris Fox. Very worthy. It was a really, really good MC. Strong, you know, outnumbered like we were. He got wounded, which apparently is always good if you get wounded, if you're going to get a medal. So, yeah.
Purple Heart if you're an American.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, yeah, that was that. Next night, they sent people out from Zulu Company, and they were unfortunate. They had a night like that we had the night we got in. Couldn't see that, you know. It was just absolutely clagged right in. And, of course, if you got a troop of really well-trained blokes, then you might say, well, we'll have a crack, and just to let them know we're here. But in fog, you never know if you've missed something on your left side, your right side. Are you in amongst them already? To start a firefight was just daft. And so Zulu Company couldn't find a target that they could happily engage in. And so they left it and they came back. Next night, X Company, 3 Troop, it was their job to do a fighting patrol. And I used to be in X Company before, so there's some people there I knew. I'd been a troop sergeant in X Company in the Northern Ireland tour before that, and so I've been in the company a long time. I had a squaddy who's another troop stripey in there, George. But the troop that we had was led by Lieutenant Stewart, Dave Stewart, and he'd been out of training since September the year before, and so he'd only been in the unit a little while. We hadn't done anything war-y at all. We hadn't, mountain training, a little bit of mountain training, but nothing very big, certainly not big shooting packages. We hadn't done anything like that. So his experience was limited to what he'd had in Lympstone. So I was invited to his orders instead of being invited before, and Chris had spoken to him. I don't know what he'd said to him, but he didn't seem to understand that you cannot do a fire team bringing in an attacking force on a ridge. It's straight up and down like that, and we would be going along the top of the ridge, and so it's all got to be skirmishing. So he went through his orders, and I kept quiet and bit my tongue a couple of times, didn't sort of say anything. And then he said that you will only open fire on my order. And I was like, no, we ain't having that. That's Woodbury Common. We're not doing that. So I said, look, boss, no, you can't do that. This is the real thing. You might have someone who's 250 metres ahead of you and can see something that's a threat to all of us. And you're saying, until you can see it, he can't engage it. That ain't going to work. Well, that's what I think we should do. I said, well, I'm not being funny, but I don't think it's a good idea. So then the troop stripey, Taff, said, I think he's right, sir. And so, see, I'm a corporal, and this is a troop stripey backing me up, quite handy. And so, all right then, all right. So anyway, so he said, right, recce troop will lead, nothing we didn't know. It was a clear night, moonlit with clouds going over the moon. So we start moving down. We're not silhouetted. We got off the side of the ridge, gone down a lovely little dark patch, got in, all the way down to the edge of this 1,000 metres of open ground. And at the edge of that, I stopped and waited. And he said, "Why have you stopped?" I said, "Well, what configuration do you think we should go across here then?" And he goes, "I don't know. What do you think?" I said, "Right, well, I'm saying we should use a blob formation." I've never heard of that. Well, no, you probably wouldn't have. But it's a blob formation. You try and look like a cloud moving over the ground, and you make a form. If you put a arrowhead, it'll be seen. If you put, single file, it'll be seen because of the spacing. I said, this is something I'd learned off of a SAS guy who's on the ML2's course, and they were telling how they'd used that in South Armagh on a moonlit night, and he said it's worth a try sometime when you get a chance. And this is a bit like a year and a half later, I'd never chanced it. I thought, here we go, blob formation, let's try it. So sure enough, I got the lads around me. It was a great moment because they were all really intense and excited, and I was like, right, okay, we're going to do, lads. Going to go across in blob. If we hear anything that sounds like an artillery piece firing, just run for the other side. Because it was a good, 800 metres across. Okay, so off went the first lot, and then the second, and they just drifted and waddled, kept close enough together so there was no obvious spaces, and we got them onto the ridge. So we had the whole troop now on the ridge. So I got there, and I said, okay, so I'm going to go forward, boss, because I got the OWS, and I'll see what I can see. Okay. Said, follow up, but give me a bit of distance. So up we go, the four-man team, me and three others from Recce, and so up we go, and we get to a point, and I can see the shape of someone laying behind a gun and the barrel pointing across, like, same as it, almost the same as it been the day before. So on the radio, okay, I've got a target, 2 people with a gun. Do you want me to engage? No, not yet. We're going to come up a bit closer. So he come up a bit closer. And so he said, right, wait for my call, and then I will tell you when to engage them. And then he put light up as an attacking force. What? We don't want light? Anyway, so that was it. We shot them straight away, Mickey and Taff. We'd got a FAL, one of the Argentinian weapons that had automatic. We got one of them off of the guys who'd done Top Marlow. And so we were using that. So these 2 guys, which one was a lieutenant commander, wearing lieutenant commander, so he's a Marine. And the other one was wearing Staff Sergeant. And they were on the gun, probably because they wanted to get a bit of action. So they were asleep on the gun. They paid the price. So then all hell breaks out. So people shooting from everywhere. People above us, people below us, rounds going everywhere. And the 2... So I've got the what was going to be the fire team with me, and he's got the 2/3 that are going to sweep over. So we come under fire from the where the minefield is. They've put 2 machine guns in there. They've turned around and they're engaging us on the ridge. So I got hold of Gaz and said, look, Gaz, I need you to stop that. This one of the lads from X company, Gaz Marshall, said, silent that for me. And him and Dickie Howard did that, and they did a great job of silencing that gun. So we were safe on our right side. Our other people were on our left side and back, and they were behind. They were under a big ledge, so the RGs were having to lean out to try and shoot at them. Right. So every time they moved back from the rock, then they could see them and they would open up on them. So that was going on anyway. The firefight was on for 20 minutes, 25 maybe. Lots of rounds going down, and I'm thinking, start thinking about moving. I wonder what he's going to do. So because he hadn't been very forthcoming with his leadership, I thought I'd ask him. So I said, can you come round here? And he was like, no, we're pinned down. We're all going to die. It's terrible. We're going to die. We're going to die. I was like, no, we're not. Come round here. He goes, I can't. I'm pinned down. I said, get your fucking ass round here now. And he came. I said, okay, sir. So what's your plan? And he was like, I don't know. What do you think? We're all going to die. Every time we move back from the rocks, they just open up on us, and there's no way we can escape. I said, come on. What's your plan? He was like, I'm trying to coach him. I'm doing a coaching job here, mentoring.
In the middle of an attack.
In the middle of an attack. I'm like, okay, so you haven't got any ideas? No, you've got no ideas. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. My team are going to come in behind your guys, draw the fire. We're going to fire a volley of 66s up into the rocks. That will give you a minute or maybe 2 minutes of no returning fire. You will peel out, form a line behind us. We will then come in and peel as well. So double peel. Have you got that? Go and tell your lads. Okay, so off he goes. And with that, I shouted, right, we're coming round. And me and Taff were on the nearest end, and I sent my other 2 lads to the far end. But we could stay near the rocks until we needed to, then pop back out. Me and Taff were giggling like a pair of girls because the rounds were going put, put, put just in front of us. And we're like, that's that point where you know you're in real great danger, but all you can do is laugh and giggle. And we were at that moment. And so we were giggling away like a pair of bloody schoolgirls. I was prepping up my 66. The other 2 had got theirs done, right, stand by. Pulled back a little bit further. Firing 66, 3, 2, 1, bang. All 3 going together at the same time. Big old crack, set of bangs. Everything stops from the Argies. They peel around behind us. We peel around behind them. They then peel behind us again. And we're out. It's that easy. No casualties. So off we went back. He was the first one back. He was leading at that point down the hill across the open ground, and then he got halfway up the other side, and then I said to him, have you done a reorg, see how many people got? And I think he said, no. I said, well, let's get that done. Troop Stripey was on it, started getting on it anyway, so Taff had started getting that done. So he did the reorg, and that was okay. And then I said, right, what's your ammunition state? And he was like, I don't know, I'll find out. So Troop Stripey says, right, you got this, that. Okay, so he's on the radio to the company commander. I have done this and I've done that, and we are now on our way back. Company commander goes, no, go back and hit them again. Well, we're got to cross that 1,000 metres right around again. No, that ain't gonna happen. And we haven't got much ammo, so that ain't gonna happen. So he goes, okay, the company commander says we've got to go back and hit them again. I said, well, do you think we can do that? And he goes, well, the company commander says we've got to do it. I said, no, he's not there. He doesn't understand what's going on. I said, you need to say, we can't do that. We haven't got enough ammunition, and it would be, futile. And so get ready. And he goes, my recce call sign says we can't do that because we haven't got enough ammunition. And then I knew I was going to be screwed. Completely screwed. And
well, better screwed than dead.
Better screwed than dead, yeah. So then we got back to its ex-company lines, so it was their own lines, and so that was good. The company commander was there, Ian Gardner was there to meet him and take him away to see the CO. I do believe that Ian Gardner had 2/3 of his MC citation written by then. It's just, absolute nonsense. Me and Taff just huddled up in our normal huggle situation, got our heads down and didn't worry about anything. Next day, Mike Hitchcock came out. He's OPSO. He says, okay, Corporal Wilkin, what really happened? I said, what? He said, tell me what really happened. So I told him, as I've now told you, and he went, yeah, I thought so. Okay, thank you. And that was it. Heard no more of it. But when you look at the citation, by that next morning, that was written up, signed up by the 4 people it needed to be signed up by. And it was the perfect, as you've read it, it's the perfect citation. It has all the right words, leadership, courage, just all the right words.
But you and I know as well, and this goes down to report writing in the military as well. It is down to the individuals that put you forward for those sorts of things as well. Now, during my time in Afghan and Iraq, and probably the same as you later on in your career, all sorts of people got written up for lots and lots of things, and some people didn't hit the board because when these reports go forward for commendations, awards, medals, they go through a board, and if they don't have the correct terminology, and regardless of actually what the individual did, they, you might have taken out, a whole company of Russians, I don't know, but Chinese or somebody like that. But unless it's written up in the correct manner with the correct word and like that, next. And
someone told me that if there was a spelling mistake in it, they just ditch it straight away. They can't even get the spelling right. Don't worry
But
about
then at the end of the day, I've had a conversation with a couple of people as well as, okay, yeah, getting medals and commendations is good because we all crave that recognition, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I've done stuff that maybe would have got an award if it had been written correctly. You've obviously done stuff, that if it had been written correctly. But at the end of the day, you did the right thing. Yeah. You survived it. You come back to tell a tale.
Save some lives.
Exactly. And you've got a story to tell at the end of the day. So what really matters here? Does a little bit of a Christmas chocolate that's
that you wear once a year.
Exactly. And let's be honest, no one really gives a fuck about anyway, except for you.
Yeah.
Or the memory and the story that you have behind that. Yeah. To tell it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're here to tell the story. Some people aren't as fortunate.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So X-Ray Company, you've done your little recce and then your little skirmish.
Yep.
What happened after that?
So then it was the 2 nights after that we did the big attack onto the top. So recce, their job in those ones is just get everybody to the start line. So we took them to the start. I took who was that? Yankee. X-Ray, Yankee, Zulu. So I took Zulu, point at Zulu, put them on their start line, moved back. I have to say, the most frightening day in the Falklands was that night. There was a huge amount of artillery coming down, huge amount of naval gunfire, and these naval guns, they whistle as they're coming in, these shells, and you're like, oh my god! And it's amazing that so you hear 2 come in. They go whoosh, boom, big boom, and you go, fucking hell. First one, second one, you go, wow, bloody hell. And then by about the 5th one, you're like, oh yeah, that one will land somewhere near there.
So this is on the night of the
night of attack, the 11th
and 12th of June.
11th and 12th, yeah.
On the Two Sisters.
On the Two Sisters. So about 1,600 feet to gain. So not too huge, but big enough. With a flat surface. If it had been the other way around and we'd been in defence, we'd still be there today. They weren't making best use of the cover and everything else they had, and they hadn't done enough work there. So you had Zulu on the left, Yankee in the middle, and on the right-hand side was X Company that was supposed to be there to give the firing in, which was, again, a non-entity. It was never going to happen. Unless they'd left, exactly.
Firing people in up a hill.
Yeah. So, and again, that was down, in fact, to the company commander. He misjudged the timing. And so they were 2 hours late. Ex-company were 2 hours late getting into position. They had Milans with them, all sorts of other bits and pieces, and they did get to fire in, but it was like bit late, really. So during that night, we lost 4 guys. Gordon McPherson, Ian Spencer, Chris Jones and Blue Novak were killed, and they were all in about the same area, and a guy called Mick Nicely was the medic, and I think he got an MM, but he did brilliantly. These guys were scattered, and he was having to give first aid across the board, 3-4 different places. Those 4 died. We had a couple of other casualties, but not a lot. Coming daylight, we swept up. Recce just swept up from behind. Everyone was already on the top, and then we were told, right, lead us down onto Sapper Hill. Now, Sapper Hill, in theory, had already been cleared by the Welsh Guards because they gave them something after their disastrous incident with the Galahad. And 40 Commando. They gave a company from 40 Commando that as well. So we were going on their third hand. So Stanley was pretty much mobbed by that time anyway. Had the cavalry trying to come down to say they were going to be first into Stanley. The Paras were still fighting away on Longdon, which was a horrible, horrible feature. If they had one professional team, it was on Longdon, and the hill just was perfect. Very thin, very steep. Only one way up to it, and it was single file, and every time they went up, they got shot down, and every time they went up, they got shot down. So Longdon was going on longer than the rest, we got onto Sapper Hill, and there was an Argentinian stood there, no weapon, no kit, speaking great English. He goes, "Oh, you guys are here then?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's get out into a spread eagle position. Let's just check you haven't got anything on you." "No, I haven't got any weapons or anything. I haven't eaten for 5 days." And he's like, "Okay, all right." So anyway, he was shaking like not just frightened, but going down with hypothermia. So we were told to hold where we were. We started getting him digging a trench, and then we'd lay him down and say, "Just lay down in that. Oh, it needs to be a bit longer yet and a bit deeper." All the time we were making him a cup of tea, and we gave him a cup of tea and sorted him out. And he was a nice lad. He'd been to university in London, and he'd never wanted anything to do with it, and just got snatched off the street, thrown into uniform, get over there, And so yeah, he was a good lad. But that was it. Yeah, effectively, the war was won. One of the things that was funny about the artillery on that night was that so they fire especially the naval gunfire. You'd hear it whistling coming in, and so whistle, boom. But every now and then you get as it went into a boggy bit, and it didn't hit anything hard. And so that was quite funny. Little things for these little minds, don't they? At that sort of time. But yeah, so then it was just a matter of dangling about, and we stayed on Sapper Hill for two more nights.
Yeah, so the war officially finished on the 14th of June.
That's right,
1982.
Yeah.
What was that initial feeling like when it came across comms that the Argentinians had raised the white flag?
As soon as we came over the hill, J Company, who was the guys who were 8901 down there, had come back in and been flown in, and then they were there putting the Union Jack up. As we came off of the Two Sisters, the Union Jack was going up. So we were all like, yeah, that's it, it's all over. Of course, then it was a massive problem. 11,700 troops. How do you get them, what we're taking them home, So they put them on the Canberra and took them home. And they had to go round to the Chilean side to drop them off because there's massive riots again in Argentina. They couldn't take them to any of the big docks in Argentina because they were just rioting like mad because the junta had told them they were winning and they'd sunk all these ships, and actually they were beat. So they got fed better by us. The prisoners said that they were sat in a compound, they in the open. We had nowhere we could put them.
How did you feel after that?
I thought, job well done. Great experience, it's going to be a valuable experience, and I enjoyed it. It sounds weird, but
it doesn't sound weird because I've said this before. It's like you watch all these movies, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, a movie is elaborating, what's potentially happened. If it's a historical event, anyway, all the hardships and all that sort of thing, but. There's one thing I always remember is someone told me once that 95% of war fighting is just fucking misery and uncomfortable, and like 5% of it is like the actual part of it,
and the elation afterwards. Yeah,
exactly. And when you are in a firefight, and this sounds really strange and almost kind of Call of Duty-esque, is that it actually is like really fun. Yeah, really fun. You hear that crack in the thump, and you're like, fucking yeah, did it me? Stupid dick. Yeah. But then, there is that morality side of it where it's like, when people do start getting hit and going down, obviously it changes a little bit. But, on retrospect, I wrote a little post a while back, about, leaving the military and what I've learned. Yeah. And, one of the things I put in there is like being in the contact is fucking fun. Yeah. Like it is fun.
How many hours do you train for that several minutes that you get actually in contact? Unless you're in a SBS blooming, direct action team, you're not going to get that on a broad basis, and unless you're in a big war, And so certainly in Afghan, I know the SB had some real big team hits. Yeah. So
40 years on, obviously this year's the 40th anniversary. Have you got any sort of like reflective thoughts on, what has happened, what was accomplished now, that the period of time has gone by?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I went down there in 2014 for the Corps birthday, And it was great to see that the Stanley was bigger and more tracks and roads everywhere. Obviously, the airport is fab. You know, it's a proper working aerodrome, if you like. The Germans have actually got a direct flight now coming in from somewhere in Germany and coming in one hit in the new 380 aircraft. So, you know, that's good. Tourism is massive, the amount of people that go to the Falklands. And so all those bootnecks that stayed behind afterwards or were already there, you know, have got jobs because there's tourism, you know, take people around the battlefields doing stuff like that. And then there's oil, obviously, minerals, stuff like that. Pipeline already going around to Chile to a plant to do stuff with it. So you can see how it's thriving. Fishing, obviously the fishing, people used to just go down there and kill all the whales and stuff like that. Now they have to get permits and they're paying the British government to do it. The Falkland Islanders buy all their fuel offshore. So they got their own fuel tanker boat, and they go out and meet a boat 12 miles off, plug in, take a big suck of fuel, bring it back. And so they're paying sort of 60p for their fuel, you know, per litre. So that's worked out well. A lot of young people left the Falklands. They get to about 15, 16 and they're like off because the potential, if you're not going to go into the farm or whatever kind of line of work your dad's got or that, then you're going to be stuffed. But in general terms, you know, it's a better place now than it was as far as infrastructure. You can cut about just about everywhere. You can actually now drive onto where the new 4-5 Commando plaque is. You can actually, and that's right in the saddle of the thing. So I don't know if you want to pop these out. I don't know if you can get them out. That's the actual one I got made up. When I went down there in 2014, it was being rubbed off. So I got that one made, and that's what the ground looks like and where it sits. So right in the middle of the saddle. So anyone going this year, as 40 years on, if they're 60, could easily walk to see it and be there. And we attacked up against that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this picture, I'll put it up in the posts and stuff that I put up for the Falklands. Yeah, yeah, it is quite barren open ground as well.
Oh
though,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
I mean, very little cover, the odd little tuck and fold in the ground, but yeah, that piece of ground's quite tricky. Yeah.
Right. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes now. Yeah. I am 100% going to do a part 2 with you with this. Okay. So I'll get you back.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll continue.
Really good.
And I'll get some questions out there as well from people that have listened to this.
Okay.
I'm firing back here because I also want to hear, and this is going to sound quite boring, but I find it quite interesting, like the logistical side of things. You know, you were talking about you had 11,000 Argies on the island. Like, you know, what the fuck do you do with them?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and what did they do for those few days? Who accommodated them? Who fed them? And all this sort of stuff. You know, it's stuff that you read books sometimes. You hear all like the really cool stuff that's in there, but actually,
and
there must have been some shenanigans in the background that used to run on.
There was lots of rounds going off in the night because people had found, you know, a lot of the Argentinians had 45 automatics, and you know, so people would pick them up and blooming wogged them. Yeah, so there's all kinds of that sort of stuff going on. Yeah,
so 100%. I'll get you back for another part of this. Okay. So Marty Wilkin, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Thank you for telling your story as well.
Yeah, pleasure, mate.
Cheers.
Good to meet you.
And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please like, share and subscribe on your podcast provider, and also leave me a little review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening.